When I married Lisa 4 years ago, I thought I was finally building the life I'd always wanted. I was 39, she was 38, and she came into the marriage with 2 kids from her previous relationship, Daniel, who was 7 at the time, and Chloe, who was 5. Lisa and her ex-husband Mike had a strained dynamic, but they managed to stay civil enough around the kids. I admired that. I thought it showed maturity. Lisa and I clicked instantly. She was warm, funny, grounded. We shared values, and when our son Noah was born a year into our marriage, it felt like everything had come full circle. I never tried to replace Mike as a father. I knew my place, and I always followed the kids' lead. When they were okay with calling me their stepdad, that was enough. I respected their boundaries and stayed in my lane. At first, things ran smoothly. Daniel and Chloe were polite, even affectionate sometimes. They'd join me in the kitchen to help with pancakes or drag me outside to play. Lisa would smile and tell me how grateful she was for how easily I'd blended into their lives. We weren't a perfect family, but we were functional and we cared about each other. I was doing my best to be a steady, supportive presence, and I thought they saw that. Lisa would often refer to all 3 kids as our children, and I followed suit when it felt right. There was a sense of unity in that. It felt like we were forming something real, something stable. But somewhere along the way, that unity started to fracture, and the cracks began to show in the most unexpected places, first with Mike, then with the kids, then eventually with Lisa herself. What started as a solid family foundation slowly began to shift beneath my feet. The shift began with Mike. At first, he just kept his distance. He wouldn't make eye contact when picking up the kids or drop them off with a curt nod. But it escalated quickly. He started making snide comments when I was around, subtle jabs that only I could pick up on at first. Then he got bolder. One day, I was walking Daniel to the car after soccer practice, and Mike pulled up early. He didn't even look at me, just barked out, "Don't talk to my son." I froze. Daniel looked confused, maybe a little embarrassed. I tried to keep calm and said, "I'm just helping him with his stuff." Mike leaned out the window and said loud enough for Daniel to hear, "Know your place, man. You're not their dad." I told Lisa immediately. She was furious. She said she'd talk to him, and she did. She even threatened to start documenting everything for court. But Mike didn't care. The comments kept coming. "Stay in your lane. They have a father. Don't overstep." And always in front of the kids. It didn't take long for Daniel and Chloe to start mimicking the tone. At first, it was subtle. Eye rolls, one-word answers, pulling away when I tried to hug them goodbye. Then it turned into full-on disrespect. Chloe told me once during dinner, "You're not really part of this family." Lisa scolded her, but the damage was done. That seed had been planted. Lisa tried to convince me to hang in there, saying the kids were just confused, that they were caught in the middle, that it would pass. I wanted to believe her. I really did. So I kept showing up. I kept helping with homework, making breakfast, driving them to practices. I told myself they'd come around, that Mike's poison wouldn't sink too deep. But it wasn't just sinking, it was spreading. It wasn't just occasional comments anymore. The energy shifted entirely. The kids didn't just act cold, they actively pushed me away. And the way they talked to Lisa about it showed just how deep Mike's influence had gotten. They started getting visibly upset when Lisa referred to us as a family. If she said something like, "Let's take a picture of our kids," Daniel would snap back, "He's not my dad. Stop saying that." Chloe once told Lisa, "You can call Noah your kid with him, but me and Daniel aren't part of that." I tried to take a step back. I figured maybe if I gave them space, things would cool off, but Lisa didn't want that. She said avoiding the situation would only make it worse, that I needed to be firm in showing them I was staying. She said, "They need to see you're not going anywhere." But the mixed signals were impossible to navigate. Lisa wanted me to embrace them fully, even as they were rejecting me at every turn. I sat them down once and gently asked if they preferred I stop using the term stepkids. I reminded them that I'd only said it because it was what we'd agreed on before. Chloe crossed her arms and said, "You're not even that. You're just some guy." Daniel added, "We only said that because Mom wanted us to. We never meant it." Lisa overheard and got upset, not at them, but at me. She said I shouldn't have asked, that it made things worse, that it gave them the idea that I didn't see them as mine. I told her I was trying to respect their wishes, but she didn't want to hear it. She kept pushing the idea that the only way to fix things was to act like I was their real father. No labels, no boundaries, just jump in completely. But how do you jump in when every move you make gets you shoved back out? Lisa kept pushing for more involvement. Take them to the movies, she'd say. Sign up to Coach Daniel's team. They need you there more. And I did try. I signed up for things. I drove them around. I sat through dance recitals and soccer games and awkward parent meetings. But every attempt was met with indifference or outright hostility. At one of Chloe's school events, I went to congratulate her after her performance. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You don't need to be here. My dad already came." And then she just walked away, in front of other parents, in front of Lisa. Lisa told me later that Chloe was just acting out, and that it meant something that I showed up anyway, but that something never turned into change. It never softened their attitudes. It never made them respect me. Instead, it started bleeding into our life with Noah. The two of them were never warm with him, but they'd at least smile or play with him now and then. But that faded. They stopped acknowledging him. Sometimes they'd tell him to leave the room or say he was annoying. Daniel once muttered under his breath, "It'd be better if he wasn't here." That cut deeper than I expected. I started worrying for Noah. He was only 3, barely aware of the tension swirling around him. But kids are smart. He noticed. He started asking me why Daniel didn't want to play with him anymore, or why Chloe ignored him at breakfast. I brought all of this to Lisa, but she clung to one phrase over and over again: "You signed up for this." As if saying vows meant I forfeited the right to boundaries or respect. I asked her what she expected me to do when nothing worked. She said, "You just need to keep showing up. Eventually they'll come around." But I was showing up, every day. And it felt like I wasn't even there. After months of tension and failed attempts to connect, I suggested we consider therapy for the kids. I wasn't trying to insult anyone. I just thought maybe a neutral space could help them express what they were feeling without all the noise from Mike or the pressure from Lisa. But Lisa brushed it off, saying, "They don't need therapy. We need to work together as a family." Eventually, she agreed to family therapy, thinking it would show unity. But from the first session, it was clear the kids weren't interested. They sat with their arms crossed, barely speaking. When they did talk, it was mostly to say things like, "I don't want to be here," or "He's not my family." Every attempt the therapist made to open a channel was blocked by their resistance. After 3 sessions, the therapist gently suggested individual therapy for the kids. Lisa immediately pushed back. She said they weren't the problem, that the environment needed healing first. I didn't want to argue in front of the therapist, but I was stunned. It felt like she couldn't or wouldn't see how badly they were hurting and how it was spilling over onto all of us. So I went alone. I needed help navigating what felt like a hopeless situation. The sessions were a relief. For the first time in months, I could speak freely, sort through the resentment building inside me. My therapist helped me identify the guilt I was carrying, the way I'd internalized the blame for a dynamic I couldn't control. I shared these insights with Lisa. I told her I felt like I was drowning, that the kids' rejection was wearing me down, that I was afraid of what it was doing to Noah. She listened in silence, then said, "This is just part of being a parent. You don't give up on your kids." But they weren't my kids. Not by blood, not by bond. And if love and effort weren't enough to make that bridge, what was I supposed to do, build it alone? Last week I picked Daniel up from soccer practice. It wasn't unusual. Lisa had asked me to do it because she was caught up with work. I thought maybe it would be a quiet ride, just me and him, no pressure. As soon as he got in the car, I tried to keep it light. "How was practice?" I asked. He didn't answer. I glanced at him, and he was staring out the window, jaw clenched. Then he said, "You're not my dad. Stop acting like you are." I nodded, trying not to react. "Okay, I'm just here to give you a ride, that's all." That's when it escalated. He turned to me, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You know I could tell people you hit me, or that you touched me. You'd go to jail, you'd never see us again, and me and Chloe and Mom wouldn't even care. We hate you, just like Dad does." I had to pull the car over. My hands were shaking. I couldn't even speak for a full minute. When I finally did, I just said, "You don't mean that." He looked at me with this coldness I'd never seen in a child and said, "Try me." I dropped him off in silence. I drove straight home and told Lisa everything. Her face went blank. No shock, no outrage, just a sigh. Then she said, "You need to stay strong. He didn't mean it. He's just angry. You have to keep showing up." I asked her if she was serious. She said yes, that they needed me. That if I gave up now, Mike would win. I told her this wasn't just anger, it was a threat, a serious one. She corrected me. Our child made a mistake. I pointed out that if I ever said something like that, I'd be out of the house in seconds. That her kids have made it crystal clear they don't see me as family, and that now my safety and Noah's are on the line. She still didn't budge. "You married me," she said. "You signed up to be their dad." And I realized for her, that was the end of the conversation. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept hearing Daniel's voice in my head, that calm, calculated threat. I kept seeing the way Lisa looked at me like I was being dramatic, like I was weak for feeling afraid. The next morning, I sat across from her at the kitchen table and asked if he or both of them actually went through with that threat and I had to leave the house, couldn't see Noah until everything was cleared. Would you still expect me to keep showing up for them? She didn't even blink. Yes, that's what a real dad does. I stared at her, stunned. Even if they lied, even if they tried to destroy my life, her voice was firm. They're kids. They don't know what they're saying. But you do. You're the adult. I reminded her that Daniel and Chloe had repeatedly said I wasn't their father, that they didn't even want me using the word stepdad, that they hated Noah, that they hated me. And she said again without hesitation, "You signed up for this." That was it. That was the moment I knew I couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't just about the kids. It was about Lisa, about her refusal to see how far things had gone, about her expecting me to sacrifice myself endlessly for two children who actively despised me and who she refused to discipline or protect me from. I stood up, grabbed my keys and told her, "I'm done." She tried to follow me, asked me to calm down, told me I was giving up too easily. I told her no. This wasn't giving up. This was survival. She kept repeating the same line. "If you keep showing up, we'll win. We're the good guys." But I didn't feel like a good guy. I felt like a man being slowly erased, like someone being punished for loving too much too quietly. So I left, and I meant it. I moved out that same night. I didn't pack much, just enough to get by. The house was technically Lisa's before we got married, and I wasn't about to fight over it. I just needed space. I needed to breathe. The next morning, I called her and said the words I never thought I'd say. "I want a divorce." There was a long pause on the line. Then she said, "You're really just going to walk away from your family?" I told her I wasn't walking away from Noah. I'd never do that. But I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for a situation where I was constantly rejected and disrespected. She cried. Then she got angry, told me I was a coward, that I was abandoning her when things got hard, that I was just like every other man who walked away when being a stepdad got complicated. I let her vent. I didn't argue. I just told her calmly that I'd reached my limit. That same evening, her father showed up at the place I was staying. I didn't even know how he found out where I was. He came in with the same energy Lisa had, disappointed, firm, unshakable. He sat across from me and said, "You made vows. You promised to be their father. You don't get to quit just because it's uncomfortable." As he spoke, we could hear shouting coming through his phone. Lisa and the kids were arguing again, loud enough that I caught pieces. "He's not my dad," Chloe screamed. Lisa yelled back, defending me. It was the first time I'd ever heard her do that with real force, but it was too late. Her father looked at me, dead serious, and said, "You're a better man than this." I stared back and said, "I was a better man when I stayed quiet, when I let myself be broken to keep the peace. But that's not strength." He didn't have a response. I meant what I said. The divorce was happening. I wasn't turning back. Since moving out, I've made a point to see Noah almost every day. I pick him up from daycare, take him to the park, read him stories before bed at my place. He's too young to understand what's happening, but I know he feels it. He clings to me a little tighter now. Sometimes he asks why we don't all eat dinner together anymore. Lisa hasn't stopped reaching out. Some days she's calm, saying we can work it out. Other days she's furious, telling me I'm weak, selfish, a failure. But I don't engage in the fights. I just repeat the same thing. I'm here for Noah, but I won't go back to being treated like a punching bag. The strange part is, I still hear everything going on in that house. Lisa doesn't realize how loud she gets on the phone. During one of our recent calls, I heard Chloe yelling at her in the background, accusing her of still pretending he's our dad. Lisa snapped back, defending me. Then Daniel chimed in, screaming that he hated both of us. Lisa tried to hush them, but it was all right there. Raw, chaotic, unfiltered. Even now, with me gone, the storm hasn't passed. It's only shifted. The hostility is still in the air, still shaping every conversation, every decision. And Lisa's still clinging to the belief that I can fix it all by coming back. Like my presence alone would heal years of damage, like love and effort are enough to override venom. Her dad's been quieter lately. He hasn't shown up again, but he did send me a message. Just a single sentence. They'll never understand what you gave up. I read it over and over, because I don't think he meant the marriage. I think he meant the role, the title, the relentless responsibility of being dad to kids who never wanted me in the first place. And maybe he's right. Maybe they never will. I've been thinking a lot about that phrase. You signed up for this. Lisa said it like it was a legal contract. Like the moment I said I do, I forfeited the right to protect myself. Like I agreed to endure anything, no matter how toxic, just because I loved her. But did I really sign up for this? Did I sign up to be called names, to be pushed out of family moments, to be accused and threatened by kids who were taught to hate me? Did I sign up to watch my own child be rejected by his siblings? Did I sign up to have every effort, every sacrifice dismissed as not enough? I wanted to be a good stepfather. I still believe in showing up. I still believe in love, in family, in trying. But trying only works when you're not the only one doing it. And in that house I was. Lisa wanted me to carry everyone on my shoulders while they threw stones. And when I stumbled, she called it weakness. I tried therapy. I tried compromise. I tried presence, patience, silence, action. I tried being kind. I tried being invisible. I tried being the glue. But it wasn't enough, and I don't think anything ever would have been. Not while Mike was in their ears, not while Lisa refused to take a real stand, not while love was expected without respect. Now I'm building something new, something quieter, smaller but stable, just me and Noah. He smiles more when he's with me now. He laughs more. He's learning that love doesn't have to hurt. I know there are people who'll say I should have stayed, should have fought harder. That I'm the adult, and the burden was mine to carry. But I wonder, how much can one person carry before they break? So I'll ask you, honestly, was I the asshole for leaving? For refusing to keep showing up in a war I didn't start and couldn't win? Or was I finally choosing peace over punishment?